So today we have this kind of agenda. We are planning to look at your soul records, your soul history. After that, going to be time for questions. It's gonna be some questions about that story. And after that, we are gonna look at some pictures. And if we will gonna have more time, we will gonna spend that on some kind of general questions if there's gonna be some. Is there anything you would like to address before we begin? Okay, we're gonna start with 5-second concentration exercise in which we are going to concentrate on our inside, and during the concentration we are going to create intention that we are willing to open your soul records, and after you will feel ready, you will have to verbally express and confirm your decision by saying the words, "Please open my soul records." Okay. So apparently the soul is from this universe. It originates from our neighboring galaxy, that is Andromeda galaxy. Apparently the soul in there have been somewhat, let's call it, evolved soul. Apparently there was some kind of, we could call it Andromeda Council. Your soul has been some kind of like a participant in that council. Soul began its evolution from apparently elementary realm. It was a water element. It was all water planet, and your soul was like a part of collective consciousness of the whole water element in that planet. And it was for a very long time. The planet was created maybe a few billion years ago, and after that the soul has just been part of that planet. And after a few billion years there was some kind of division. There have been some kind of evolved forces which you could say sliced that planet into slices, if that is imaginable, because it's a water planet, so it's kind of hard to imagine how the water could be sliced, but apparently that's how it was done. And those slices became individual souls. So that's how your soul has appeared as an individual. And after that, those souls have been like introduced into some kind of evolutionary education system, which requires soul to evolve. And when soul was participating in that learning procedure, the soul is kind of spiritually evolving, and your soul's study course was on something similar, what we could call here on Earth diplomacy. And this diplomacy is more towards like intergalactic diplomacy. Your soul had idea that it is going to participate in that Andromeda Council group, which is intergalactic group, is like controlling or maybe influencing intergalactic relationships. And your soul was a student. It was like on practical assignment, which was part of the studies, which by a practical assignment it is meant that your soul had a practical assignment to go somewhere and to experience what does it mean to be in the field, and to understand how does it feel to practically experience diplomacy. especially in the conflicting zones. So the assignment which was assigned, the practical assignment, was to go to the neighboring galaxy, that is Milky Way galaxy, which is our galaxy. And by coming here, the idea was to participate in diplomatic relationships, especially oriented towards Orion constellation, because that constellation had a lot of conflicting energies. And the idea was to say that to balance that conflict would be overstatement, but at least to understand it, that would be more appropriate term. So the soul, around 750,000 years before our era, is coming to Orion constellation, and there was a group of souls which came, which idea was to observe the conflict zone and try to learn something, maybe try to influence if possible, and see what happens. That was the idea, and at that moment, Orion constellation have been in a lot of wars, especially with Canis Major constellation, with Taurus constellation. A lot of wars have been going on. So it was kind of interesting assignment to try to understand in the first place why the conflicts are going, and try to at least give some kind of guiding advice how to resolve that conflict. So it was going on for a couple of thousand years, more like 500,000 years, and around 250,000 years ago, your soul has decided that apparently, well, it was several energies which were in motion. First, it was already going quite clear that Orion constellation is going to be balanced in the future anyway. So there was no real need to be there anymore. Another energy was that Orion constellations and all the rest of this galaxy's conflicting energies are going to be balanced through one planet, that is terrestrial, which is this planet we call Earth in English language. So your soul decided to kind of step forward and go for the main goal, that is to experience the last episodes of balancing of all these energies. So it came to this planet 250,000 years ago, and first incarnation it had experienced was in Pacific Ocean. There was a civilization there which was called Lemuria. So it had first incarnation there. In first incarnation and the preceding incarnations, there mostly have been like political, diplomatic kind of lifestyles, which most of which it was like, for example, interplanetary relationships and so on, because there have been a lot of traffic between Lemuria and other planets outside this planet. So it was the first idea to start with that, but later on this kind of position have shifted, and mainly because another civilization have arisen, that is Atlantis civilization in Atlantic Ocean. So mostly the work has been around diplomatic relationships between Lemuria and Atlantis. But as the story goes, those relationships haven't been completely balanced. So there have been a lot of work. Well, in the end, it didn't work out, and the war have broke out, which concluded in that Atlantis has used a very destructive weapon, which annihilated Lemuria. So it sunk down to the bottom of the ocean, And what we have now, the remnants of that civilization, are those so-called the surrounding islands of the Australia. All those islands, the Hawaii, and well, Hawaii is one side of it, and another side of those small islands which are surrounding Australia. So, in the beginning, your soul has just reincarnated in those islands and have been living there. All the civilization have all kind of plummeted down. It was more like a tribal life then, living in tribes, and all the technology and everything was lost. So it was became this kind of very ancient, as we call, style of living, a tribal living. So a lot of lives have been spent in there. Apparently, that most of the rest of lives have been spent in those regions, more or less. Maybe some lives a little bit more towards India or towards Japan. That region was mostly where the lives have been. After destruction of Lemuria, kind of trauma has been experienced and kind of self-confidence have been lost about ability to perform diplomatic relationships. So soul has went into kind of inside of itself and began to look for the inner guidance to better understand its purpose and its abilities and so on. So it was the inner journey has begun. It led into that there have been a lot of kind of shamanic rituals which have been performed. There have been a lot of shamans, all that kind of rituals which help to reorient and apparently then after civilizations have begun to rise, after British colonists have came to those areas, that is when your soul have like awakened again. And that awakening was that British had ideas about how we wanted to see those areas to evolve, Australia and the surrounding islands, and there was a need for diplomatic relationships again. So your soul began to relate to those diplomatic relationships and like it reawakened and kind of remembered itself, remembered its purpose, that it was always have been to perform those diplomatic relationships. So rest of the story goes on in those regions, probably in Australia, and there have been a lot of lives there, where usually it was about diplomacy, but later on there have been some kind of apparently again traumatic. Apparently it was something about some kind of conflict which have like repeated those energies about trauma between Atlantis and Lemuria, which was kind of similar how Atlantis relationship have been with Lemuria. So it was like a karmic relationship between British and those Austro-Asian civilizations. It was also similar. So after you try to balance those relationships, there have been some conflicting situations which none of have led to very devastating consequences, but still there have been way too much bloodshed. So therefore your soul again have like turned inwards, and in this life, that's the life your soul has now. It is about this inner journey again, about rediscovering itself, and this is where your soul's life have led you up to now. That is to understand yourself, to discover your spiritual inner side, and apparently this life is going to be mostly about inner journey, it is inner discovery. And after this life, there is another life which is agreed upon to reincarnate again in this planet. But next life is going to be again about outside relationship, that is diplomacy, and it's going to be needed because during this lifetime we are going to start developing interplanetary relationships with other planets and other civilizations. In the next lifetime, we are planning to be very active in those kind of activities, and because of that, your mission then is going to be all kind of balance all those relationships. But for this lifetime, you kind of need to rediscover your inner guidance, especially regarding all those diplomatic relationships with the outside, but also with the inside. And after that's going to be balanced, then you will be able to perform your duties in the next lifetime. And apparently, that your soul is planning on staying in this planet for maybe 2 or 3 more lifetimes to completely integrate this planet into our galaxy. So it would be participating into galactic relationships. And then your soul is planning to leave this planet and is planning to go back to Andromeda galaxy, and in there to go back to university to deliver your experience. There's going to be some kind of accreditation or something in that nature where you will have to represent your journey. What have you experienced? What have you learned? How or what kind of evolution you have evolved to? What have you learned and how you progressed? There's going to be all kind of examination about that. And after you will gonna pass that examination, then you will be like accredited, probably that's the correct term, to be apparently something similar to a teacher, a docent, probably, which is going to work in that university. And the purpose is going to be to teach other younger souls about these kind of experiences and how to explain how to work with these kind of energies. And the purpose is going to be to help them to understand it. What better teacher there could be if not someone who have experienced it by itself. So after that, apparently it's going to be a long-term mission for at least a couple of thousand of years in that teacher's position, and I guess we're just gonna leave it at that. So these are the most apparent energies which have been seen. So maybe there are some kind of questions or something you would like to elaborate about. First of all, we have to differentiate a little bit about politics and diplomacy. These are kind of, from our perspective, it's kind of different terms, because politics mostly refers to some kind of poly, which means a lot of, like majority's opinion or something like that. And diplomacy doesn't have to involve majority. Diplomacy can be between two sides, which can be two persons, like man and woman, for example. Doesn't need to involve politics and majorities. So after that, your interest in laws and all that sort of things obviously connected with that, and it's just natural to be interested in all those things, because There have been a lot of interest in that before. That was the soul's main purpose, and there's going to be a lot of interest in that later on. But at the moment, what's the most important thing is to discover the true diplomacy, which is inner diplomacy. Inner diplomacy is not the outer diplomacy. There is a difference, because the outer diplomacy is usually based on some kind of made up ideas like laws or rules, regulations, and all sort of similar things. Contrary, the inner diplomacy is usually based on our inner truth. That is how we discover how things should be according to, let's just put it, the laws of the universe, which are more like discovered and not made. Because then you discover something, then you can say this is what works because that's how it is, instead of saying that's how it will be because this is how I decided. So it is kind of different. Yeah, you can say it like that. Ego versus spirituality. From this channel's point of view, you, madam, are doing just exactly what you should be doing. That is not overburdening yourself with the outside things and more indulging yourself into the inner side, because that was the soul's whole idea for this life, to study the inside and leave the outside for itself. It will survive, and you are planning to come back to the outside world after you will finish studying the inside world. So that was the idea. Obviously, there is no need for that to go outside. At least not for the moment. Yes, that diplomacy thing is not for the moment for you to study, but if there is a need or a will to understand the true diplomacy, you can study the Greek diplomacy, the Greek Republic diplomacy. The best diplomacy we had, it was in ancient Greek, the Greek Republic diplomacy. Yes, because your future diplomatic work is going to be based on that, on those principles which have been expressed during the ancient Greek times. That is quite correct, that we shouldn't overburden ourselves with information which we don't need at the moment, because we can take in only so much. We should trust more in our higher self, which guide us through the information which we need, and at every moment in our life we get only that which is the most needed for the moment, and after we absorb that, then we can proceed and we receive more. Universe is not holding back anything from us. It's just that there is appropriate pace by which information is delivered to not to overburden us. So in here we have 3 pictures. In the first picture, so this youngest son, apparently there are karmical relationships with this person. This person have been a British colonist which came to Polynesian islands which we were inhabiting at that moment, and apparently you had kind of Well, let's just put it this way, friendly relationship. You were able to agree on certain things, and after that, well, it was nice what you had have been able to relate to each other, but it didn't help to solve all of the problems because, well, there have been more problems, not only your relationship, but there have been more cultural problems. Because of that, you were kind of both, let's just say, disappointed in the way it went. So you kind of made an agreement that you will meet again and under different circumstances. And based on that agreement, that's how this life has been made, that you decided to meet again, but it wasn't necessary to be in a relationship like mother and son. It could have been in a different kind of relationship. The reason why it was chosen to be mother and son, it was based on the idea that you didn't want to mix man and woman relationship, and you wanted to, it was important to be in different polarity, that is man and woman, but you didn't want it to go to some kind of, for example, romantic relationship or something like that. So it had to either be, for example, brother and son or brother and sister or something like that. So that was just the way it went. It could have went other ways, but apparently all the other opportunities have been used already, and there were no other ways to meet. So that's the way you decided to meet. And the idea is that in this lifetime you should be good friends, and apparently in the future there is going to be some kind of partnership. The person is planning on going to some kind of outside journey and trying to fix some of the British damage, let's call it that way, which have been done to Polynesian islands. Was planning on going there and trying to do something good about it. It is going to need some spiritual guidance there. And this is where you come in, because your soul is studying those things, and it will be able to compensate the lack of spiritual knowledge in that person, and it will be able to draw some of that spiritual energy from your side and to be able to be wiser in its decisions in the future regarding all those things it is planning on fixing, whatever it might be. Well, this middle name at the moment does not relate to anything for us, but besides that, it might be connected with the fact that the person is willing to be a mediator between all these Polynesian and British relationships. So it might serve as a kind of stepping stone toward relating toward those native people of those regions. Well, what can be said about this entity growing up? It is going to have an appropriate mentor. Therefore, universe trust in this entity that it is going to make correct decisions. That is the person with the beard or with the yellow shirt? Okay. So the entity in the yellow shirt, this entity have decided to come to this family because this entity is very Polynesian. It is from those islands, and it was important to to come to this family because of the younger son, the younger entity, because this is where it all begins, as we say. This is where British and Polynesians meet again, at least on the soul level. And it is in this family that we are going to begin to balance those relationships, or at least try to. And that is the reason why we have met. This person was sort of like a, let's put it in a shaman term, some kind of shaman or something like that. And now what we are seeing here, especially from your point of view, is that you are the mediator at the moment between these British and Polynesian relationships on a soul level, between these two sons. And your kind of mission, let's put it this way, is to balance those relationships. So if entities are agreeing appropriately, then you, madam, are performing a good job. If they are experiencing some unbalance, then there is still some work to do. But important thing is that communication, relationship between these two children are important because, especially for the younger one, because that's how the younger one is learning how to relate to Polynesian spirits and how it is going to evolve in its further development. And it is based on the relationship with the older brother. And it's important that the brother is older because it gives kind of respect for the older brother, and because of that, intuitively it is felt that the soul is Polynesian, so therefore it kind of builds respect for the Polynesian souls, and it will help to be more appropriate in the decisions the way it is going to make decisions in the future. So basically, the older son came, you could say, because it knew that the younger son is coming. It needed to be older so it could teach something to the younger son, because the younger son has some things it will need to attend to in the future. In general terms, it makes sense to say that it would be better if we were kind of turn around in their ages, but this is appropriate as it is because the British have ruled over Polynesians, and energetically it needs to be the other way around now, so that Polynesians would feel superior towards British, and that's what these energies are expressing, and that's why the older son feels like it has reason, or how you would say it, that it can suppress the younger son, the younger brother, because it wants to regain that energy balance that which British have like expressed towards Polynesians, but we are superior, and now person is like saying now it's our time to be superior, but then you should balance those energies and say to both of them, nobody has to be superior, we need to reach a balance point. That's how it's going to be resolved. For your soul, it is also important because your soul felt like it had failed in its mission, because before there have been those like Atlantis and Lemurian conflict, and then British and Polynesian conflict, and it felt like you haven't did your best. It doesn't mean you haven't done your best, but it tells for you like you haven't done your best to balance those conflicts. And now this mini conflict between these two souls is for you like a way to resolve those energies. So at least you will feel like at least I have balanced these energies, and that kind of will make you feel better about it. Next picture is the person partner's picture. So this person, well, apparently there is not seen any karmic relationship there. Apparently this person is connected mostly with the youngest son. Apparently they have some kind of relationship between them. It appears that this whole family was like planned from the beginning. It was supposed to be this way, even though it might seem other way. It is as it's supposed to be, and this person just came to fulfill that plan, to fulfill that role. That was basically the whole purpose of you being together. But for both of offsprings, was there another entity you wanted to? Yes, the cat entity. Well, basically, with the cat, there is this situation that the cat had a specific role or mission in your family, and basically, the cat fulfilled that mission. The mission was to open a certain spiritual portal, and basically, the way the cat entity have done it was through passing away. Because it was the whole purpose to come here, to pass away, and by passing away, that opens this portal by which there is a lot of emotional release and spiritual insights which come from that, a lot of questions and answers. So that is the whole purpose. Basically, the entity have fulfilled its mission. The entity decided to take a quick exit because the other way it could have went would have been through illness, but the entity decided it doesn't want to burden you with all that difficulty about thinking why the entity became sick and what have you done wrong, how to fix it, and all those unnecessary questions which would have burdened you and you would regret about your decisions. Maybe you went for the wrong doctor or wrong medicine or whatever. So entity decided to make a quick exit, and it was basically conscious decision to go there and just painless death. Exactly. So you made it difficult for the entity to become sick. So it had to take another alternative then. Yes, it was a conscious decision. But despite that, you would have to remember that there are other entities who would really like to spend some time with you because you're such an entities, of course, and they all are willing to be with you and to assist you and have maybe make different decisions because now the portal is open. So other animals don't have to open the portal, but other entities can come through the portal. So there is some obligation this channel needs to make. We are obligated to explain something because we will allow you to make the connections, but we will just gonna put it this way. If you remember, the cat entity passed away on the days that we have started our communication. Basically, that was one of the aspects of the portal that the entity had opened. It is connected about your ability to remember yourself as a soul, your past lives, your essence of your soul. And now after that we have communicated, and because the entity is keeping the portal open, the cat entity is keeping the portal open. It is usually after we communicate with people, the portal is being open for a week or two, after which person can go to meditation or dream state and remember, for example, during the meditation, it can remember this conversation, and by remembering the conversation, it can expand during their meditation this experience, the thoughts, feelings, experiences what they have experienced, and go deeper into those insights. Maybe to also remember something. If there is success with dreaming, it is also advisable to go to the dream state, and before going to sleep, just to go to sleep with the remember of this conversation and go deeper into that during the dream state, and then we will be able to kind of dream your expansions of these energies. But because the cat entity is holding this portal open, usually the portal closes down in 1 to 2 weeks, because person just forgets about, because of human nature, we tend to forget things. But the cat entity is going to be now associated with the story of your soul, and that strong feeling about the cat entity passing away, we're gonna keep that energy active about your soul, about you discovering your soul or going inside of your soul. These energies now are associated in your subconscious, and because of that association, this energy is going to be much longer active, at least 2 months minimum, and this way you will have much more time to deeper into your soul. And after approximately 2 weeks, because we made a recording of the session, we are going to upload it on YouTube platform, and you will be able to re-listen it, and we hope there is a lot that you can reflect again upon, just to experience it again. So that's how it went. No, because after some time you will start to live on. I mean, it's not like you're going to think every day for after 2 months that your cat entity has passed away, and then you will start to forget kind of about it. Yes, the entity have opened a spiritual driveway. Regarding your spiritual development and general spiritual development, if there was ability to look at our website, there is this something we call self-development awakening course. It's completely free. If there is will to see our point of view, there is ability to study the course if there is a need for that. So I think it's gonna be sufficient for this communication. So we want to, first of all, as in regard to the universe, we would like to thank you for you doing your mission, because it's important, and whatever you think about it, it's important. So that's important to express. But as this channel, we would like to just say thank you for the ability to communicate and to maybe even help you somehow during this communication. And if the communication you found somehow helpful, there are ways to express your gratitude. It is below the terms of communication which you have agreed upon. So we wanted to thank you for the ability to communicate, and wanted to wish you all the best for the rest.